Hello Internet. Today I'm going to be comparing my good old trusty reballing station that I used 100 millions of times, and I will demonstrate to you how I use it, and then I'll demonstrate how this is supposed to be used, and I'll probably give you a little bit of my negative experience with this and why this could have been better, and given the fact how simple this thing is and how ineffective it is, I'd probably stick with this. So who cares? So we're going to apply a little bit of flux here on the chip, and you may have noticed that this chip is actually sitting in there spring-loaded. That little black thing here, this is actually a spring. So let me go and yank the chip out. So when the chip is there, see there's a little bit of springing going on, so you can kind of push the chip in, get it all nice and secured, and you can apply flux. And the greatest thing about this spring-loaded mechanism is that you can do this. You can tap the chip with the flux on your finger, and what that does is that it will evenly distribute, hopefully you can see it, how evenly distributed the flux is across the chip, across the pads. There are no blobs, there are no trenches, no hills and valleys, just a very nice flat application. So, and that's critical, especially if you're using certain types of fluxes that like to liquefy, that become very thin when they get hot. So the thinner they become, the more likely your balls are going to move around. So lift. Our chip is perfectly aligned with the balls. The balls are perfectly aligned with the chip. We grab it by the edge and we put it on, whatever non-heat conductive material, so that we don't end up cooling the chip while we're trying to solder the chips. Let's go and solder this guy real quick. I'll switch over to a microscope so you can see what I'm doing, and you can see all the balls are sitting in their places, very nice. And finishing off, this reball is quite effortless. So let's go and do that real quick. Things do move. Like I said, this flux becomes very thin when it's warmed up. But the reason why I'm using it is because it leaves nice and dry surface. It'll evaporate, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes flux doesn't evaporate, depends on the type of flux that you use. But this one seems to be doing really good. I really like it. And I use it so little that paying nearly double the price for this flux is not a big problem whatsoever. Okay, there we go. This chip is done. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks almost perfectly dry, so we can take it out and throw it into the garbage. No, I'm kidding. It's a good chip. We're not gonna throw it into the garbage. Now let's do this one here. This one here is gonna be a lot more challenging, because as you can see, there are no springs that would hold these chips locked into place, meaning that we're going to run into a problem. Let me go ahead and situate the chips on to the plate. There's one, there's two, and you would think, man, doing 8 chips at a time, what a deal. Paying almost $80 for this, can't go wrong. But you can. You can go wrong with this, because it doesn't work the way you think. It works in the worst way possible. I'm almost at a point of thinking about drilling holes to the bottom of these and kind of adding some kind of a sticky pad or something, or attaching a vacuum and have it siphon and have it suck these chips, keeping it down under negative air pressure while you're doing your thing. But it will be overkill. So first order of business, make sure everything's aligned, and everything is. So let's start applying the flux. So I'm going to drop a couple of blobs in each half of the chip, like so. Now for the application, you can't tap these chips. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So you apply it like normal, and see what happens. The chip sticks to your finger because it hates you, or maybe it likes you, I don't know. So what you end up doing is you end up moving left and right like so, and you gotta be so careful not to lift the chip. And basically same thing here, same thing here. Sometimes you get too much, so make sure you wipe your finger. You don't want to put too much flux on these chips, and it becomes very difficult to dose the flux at this point, because it seems like you don't have enough, but you actually have too much. And yeah, there we go. It just keeps detaching. So it's not as easy to apply the proper amount of flux, and that's why I don't like it. It takes a lot of time to apply flux. So why are you marketing this as a time saver if it doesn't save me any time here? Alright, so I think we've applied, and I probably want to go over these chips maybe in such fashion like this, so that I can somewhat even out the distribution of flux. Gotta go under a microscope and have a look at the result of our application, and I think I did a pretty good job. I'm actually very impressed with how well that was applied. But you can see all these swirls. You know, these are the potential problems depending on the flux that you use. That's why I like to tap these chips. And a little bit of flux here on the edge, that could potentially melt and seep in onto these pads here. Looks like this area here is a little bit too saturated. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. You have to take time to inspect and verify before you actually start pouring balls down there. It's just time consuming. I don't like it. Let's pour this one down. It's hard to grab, so I'm gonna be putting some legs under this thing. Shake the baby, shake that baby. Pour it out, and because of the because of all the all those swirls and whatnot that resulted in the application process, the flux is never applied evenly. As you can see, we have several spots where it didn't stick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to force some of these balls in there. Make sure your finger is clean and dry. Let's try again. And nope, we still have a bunch of pads that refuse to stick, which means we can either try to go there and manually fill them, which I don't really have a choice, so I'm gonna have to do that. Let's go and have a look. Just gonna drop a few balls here on the table, and let's go under a microscope, try to fill those holes. Yeah, looks like the flux didn't make it there, so we're gonna have to manually fill these in, which is very unfortunate. I mean, you look at it, it looks good, then you start pouring balls and it doesn't work, and then you're sitting there scratching your head wondering what's going on. And all of this could have been fixed if they were to add a little spring to hold each chip down so it does not move, or at least not as easily. So basically what I'm doing here is spending time to fix this jig's inability to do what it is designed to do. I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong, let me know. Maybe there's a different way to do this. But as of right now, I don't like what I'm seeing. And I don't feel like I'm saving a whole bunch of time here, because the time it takes for me to put these balls in within that same time frame, I probably would have prepped the all these 8 chips one by one. Okay, let's lift. Looks like one ball got stuck. Okay, so everything's looking good. One ball got moved here. No big deal. So now we need to take all these chips, because you cannot solder them here. This aluminum block will serve as a heatsink, and it will cool everything down as you're trying to heat up the chips. So one way to finish these chips is either put them on a preheater plate or do them by air. So for that, you're gonna need some kind of a non-heat conductive surface, such as this fiberglass composite thingy, whatever this thing is. It's a bottom piece for a 6-chip reballing jig, which was completely useless. So I just ended up throwing it away and keeping the bottom just to station the chips. It looks like the chips do come out of their slots very easily, so that's good. We do not want them to get stuck in there. Though if it was spring-loaded, it would be harder to get them out, but you wouldn't worry about it too much because the flux would have been applied much better. So let's go and finish off those chips. Yeah, look at all that smearing marks, all those uneven applications. It's all part of that process, I guess. I don't see any way to avoid it with this jig. Not in the way it comes, at least. Without any mechanism to keep the chip in place while you're tapping your finger on it. And what makes it more difficult is that Samsung chips don't have round pads, so when the balls shift due to your flux becoming too thin, the application of flux becomes more critical. I mean, even application of flux. As you can see here, there's nothing even about this application here. It does not look even at all. Hopefully, see that one doesn't even want to stick, because apparently you got flux all around, but you don't have flux in this corner here somehow. Not sure how that even possible. That's why I don't apply flux just by wiping my finger. I apply it by tapping. Another problem that I'm having right now is because I was trying not to apply too much, I applied too little. So now I have to flood the chip in order to fix that. Okay, there we go. So that problem is fixed. But I don't like to do that, because now I have to clean this chip. Now this chip is not gonna... I mean, I just don't like these chips to be flooded. Just too much flux everywhere. I want them to be nice and clean. So flooding the chip... I used to flood chips before, and then you have to clean them. It's just too much work. And if I have to do too much work using this jig, I don't understand the reason for its existence. I've had to flood 1, 2, 3, 4 chips. So basically half the chips had to be flooded, which means half of them would need to go into an ultrasonic to get them all cleaned. And what makes it worse is that this particular flux is not cleaned by the ultrasonic very well, so I will have to do it manually with the brush. So to recap, now that we have flux smeared all over the top surface, we're gonna have to clean it all up with a brush like so, and then blow it out. So that's not too bad. And yeah, probably want to do a Captain tape here to raise up the height just a little bit, so it sits just slightly over the chips to give you 100% guarantee that it will not contact with the flux, and the inability to grab it from the bottom, which I'll have to fix by adding some legs. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say like which one is the best. This clearly does have its use. Eventually I'm sure I'll get better at it, but as of right now, this thing here, it works really well, very reliable. I've almost never had to reposition balls after using this jig because I'm able to tap the chips. But there are other flux that you can use that will probably help with that. Maybe there's a tiny little squeegee that you can use to apply flux. I've seen the video of a guy on YouTube doing it, and there was just so much flux everywhere while he was using that squeegee. And not to mention, in the video he didn't really show the entire process. He kind of cut his video and just showed you the final result, you know, like, hey look, it works great, yay, go spend your money. But in reality, you've seen what it does. So hopefully this video will be enough for you to make your decision on whether or not you want to deal with this. Maybe you have some solutions that you'd like to propose. I'd like to hear them. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll get to it eventually. And thank you for watching, and have a blessed day. Goodbye.